Hello all, Dr. Fox back here with you with the weekend update. We got all kinds of things. Oh, there's been stresses. We got the mention of the Preach Ian interview there. We'll put that link in there, of course. Class buffs, mythic stuff going on. We've got some jumps. Well, let's get on into this, shan't we? Dr. Fox back here with you with the weekend update. And you may have just seen Morris Taylor. She was jumping down. Or I'm not sure if the video caught that right at that last second as she was jumping in there. So sorry there's not much scenery. There's pretty much a neighbor next to it. We'll get into all that stuff shortly. Let's kind of get through some of our bullet points so we can get to all the craziness that's been going on around here. First off, finally, at least for us, we have water, running water. Okay, well, the pressure's come down a little bit, but I'll take it. It's better than none running water. I mean, I did have my tank filled up, but that's another story for another day. Electricity's back. Woohoo! Internet, yeah, that's common, though. And I'll get into reasoning and all that kind of stuff a little later. Very extremely stressful day last year. I'm just briefly touching on that as we segue into some changes that are pros and cons of how you're feeling. Go ahead and feel free to share those in the comments as always. So the interview with Preach Ian covered a lot of info there. I'm going to put that link in there as well. They covered it a little bit better. I'm going to also add a couple of streamers links for their weekend update. They cover those much more in depth. That's really what our weekend update's about. Hitting some bullet points, letting you know another good source to go out and check and enjoy those as always. So oh gosh, are you struggling with Path of Ascension? Ugh, for some of us. Other ones are like, oh no, Dr. Fox, I'm good to go. Others are like, nope, not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. As you get into the later, now don't get me wrong, I'm happy to do grinding and things like that within reason. It's a bit of a challenge. I'm just going to leave it at that. Like I said, the links that I mentioned earlier about a couple streamers, they cover a lot of these points much more in depth than we do. We're just touching on these very, very briefly as we move through some of these different ones as well. There has been a mythic score added. How are you feeling about that? This add-on that we had of the Raider IO has also been pretty much taken away as Mora gracious her presence with us as well. Look at that. You guys you get two sides of her. You get up here, and then you also get the over here. So, Miss Mora once again derails our points of topic, as we say, right there, Miss Beautiful Thing. Here's my love bug. She's been such a trooper. We had to go get she's knocking my lip balm, and I was trying to keep it here in case I needed to do a quick touch up. She was quite the trooper. We had to go to the U-Haul on Friday to get our trailer hitch put on, and I'll explain all that soon about what's going on with that. But she was really such a trooper. We had to put her in one of those free U-Haul boxes, and she was so quiet, and I just sat. There was like one waiting chair for me, and I sat in it. And I think we dropped it off a little before 4 because the appointment was at 4:30, so I know it was a little early. And I don't think we left there till I think it was almost 7:30. And but again, we'll get into all that. All I wanted to add on was she was a trooper the other night. She's been really, really good, especially being a trooper. And we've had to live in our car for the last freaking week. I won't get into that mess right now. We've got a lot of other things. There is a skip if you complete at least one character up to Anduin. Then now when you run any alts, you can now skip a lot of that so that you pretty much have alts jumped forward ahead for as we get into the 9-1 content as well. And speaking of 9-1 content, the ranks are going up, of course, at least on the PvP side. If you're not PvP and you want to run, say, the Mythic Pluses, or at least the Mythic Raids, that'll give you gear up to 200 and between 252 and then the final bosses are 259. But if you're PvPers, they're adding this new currency from the Soul Ash. Now there's Soul... How did they word this? It's soul cinders, and you're gonna need 500 soul cinders for rank 5 for you PvPers, and rank 6 you're gonna need 1,650. Now that's just me. By all means, crank it out if you got the time. I don't have the time, sadly, and I just don't. I don't grind. I usually wait till the next patch, and then there's better gear that drops. Some can't wait around for that. They need that better gear so they can do other things, and that's fine. I'm sharing with you how my system progresses through this thing. That's all. I'm just sharing mine. As by all means, share what your thought process is. How do you go from major patch to patch, or major expansion to expansion, or do you just jump from game to game to game? What are you currently playing? By all means, share all that as always. As well as now, there's one thing that they touched on about the conduits. When you change to, this is something, a lot of these points we're pointing today out is in patch 9.1 when that officially drops. If you change covenants, then when you go into your little conduits, or some would say, just get rid of them. And I'm sure by the end of the expansion, this is common, we get something in an expansion, kind of leaves it behind. But if for those few that do jump, now for me, I don't. I have 4 characters that each have their own covenant. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna stay on one and jump all 4 covenants. Now some like to be able to do that because they're like, well, I need it for a raid boss or something like that. But for those that are changing covenants, and then they go in, and instead of having to grind through each of the pieces, the good news is they are allowing you to now just click through all the conduits that you want on your followers, right on through down to the last one, so you're not waiting to grind through that whole like 40 renowned. So I hope that helps a little bit on those aspects as well. There's a lot of Torghast changes we briefly touched on the other week. The good news, in Torghast 5 levels instead of 6 when you're running through it. That's what they take a level off for you. It wasn't too bad. You'd get like halfway through and you'd basically have like your one level that was just the little items. There's those 2 item characters there on level 6 and on 3. And I remember the quest for doing that too. You had to go to the 3rd and to the 6th one. And I ended up having to like rerun it really quick on a lower level just to get that quest done, because I was running some higher level ones, I think the rank 8s, with a group of folks, and they were going so fast I couldn't keep. I remember getting to 1 level, and I couldn't. These guards kept appearing, and I couldn't get past them, and no one, it's really harsh when so many people become so selfish and fast grinding and don't really stop and come back to help, and it's really, really debilitating. It's really struggling. And thank God, speaking of that, there is one thing else that they've added. The bosses, as you work down their hit points, if they kill you and now you're trying to come back, they don't reset and you're like, oh, I gotta do this again. Thankfully, they're going to start staying down. Let's say you'd get them down to halfway and you die and you're like, no, or almost 3/4. Now when you come back, it'll be whatever you had got those hit points down to. Thank goodness. Let's hope that they get all those tweaks worked out. And, the mystery, speaking of being able to skip for these parts, what about the Maw beginning? We were able to do that fairly quickly, and, BFA and, the Legion intro, and I get it. Especially how later on Warlords of Draenor intro actually paid off for you to get better leveling that way, and a lot of people that would be going back with alts would be using. Heck, I did that for the longest time using that. It gave you like a couple of levels running through that intro. It would just be nice if we now could just skip that. And I'm sure there's some mechanics going on there. That's some struggles there. And speaking of that, we are, when it comes to our game, we are working, hang in there, iOS users. I did talk to one of the game developers this past week. I know we finally got him in. We were having some struggles of getting invitations sent out to a couple of programmers so they could finish trying to work on that and work out the tweaks to get that on iOS. And that was kind of a struggle there for us. So anyway, we're going to leave it at that. We're going to shift back Trying to just tidy up here. Let's see if we had, do we hit on all these bullet points we wanted to cover for you all as well. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, and Torghast, while we were on the Torghast comment as well, it was kind of nice. Under the Torment of Torghast, looks like there's this new sort of jailer color type U-back cloak piece transmog coming as well. And there'll be some different... I guess they data mined like a whole bunch of different colors, so that will become... It's kind of neat. It's like if you ran the Mythic Plus 15s or higher on all dungeons, and you've got that specific mount, and they're doing some recolors of that mount. On its back, it has sort of that jailer, like upside down U, or the little U, I mean. And that's an interesting little back piece that's coming. Just something that seemed to bring up some hype, and something we wanted to at least just kind of touch on as well with that. So... And everything from, oh gosh, like the crafted gear, class buffs and nerfs, of course. And like I said, we're going to leave a few small bullet points on that. I think at that point, we're going to kind of shift gears before this drags on too much longer. It was an extremely stressful week. And speaking of, like, and when it comes to players, but not just players, but just in life, you'd think that, you know, we might think about it right now while we're sitting, while we're listening, maybe a moment or two when something else comes up, and sometimes we kind of get lost in our own lives. And I get all that, obviously. I'm very, very compassionate to other people's needs, concerns, pluses, but then we forget to slow down and think about others' concerns, and then most would just be very selfish and angry, and they're just very one-minded. It's very, very stressful and agonizing. And I've had decades of driving experience. And not that this is where this is leading, but it's really frustrating. It's very difficult, and it was very, very challenging to try to get things traded in. Now, the good news is I wish it had gone as smoothly as my truck trade-in. I needed to downsize. There's a whole list of reasons. I needed to cut my costs in half. There's just so many reasons I needed. It was getting too much for me. I've been wanting to do this for a while. And then some would say, well, don't do it until you get settled. And it was just too much. I needed to do it ASAP while I was still in limbo, because I knew if I was already stressing about limbo and all these other chaos stresses right now, then I had to do that, and there's a whole list of other reasons, and then some would say that that's still not a legitimate reason for what we're going to be leading up to shortly. And with that said, I had to downgrade, and then we couldn't get the trailer hitch that I had touched on with beautiful Miss Mora earlier, being a trooper. We couldn't get it done until this past Friday at U-Haul, and normally they do it in-house, but the in-house folks were on vacation. Now, there's no problem with being on vacation. That wasn't my point. What I said prior and just a few moments ago, this is leading up to something, so bear with me. Those that know my storytelling know that we lead up to a point and a fact and something to contemplate and think about. As we're plugging through this process. I'm being extremely nice right now when I share this conversation, because there was some not quite so friendly wording. And I'm not a chico who likes to swear. I don't. I take a lot after fictional characters' process of mind when it comes to like Diana Prince and Steve Rogers, things like that. So and my mom and my grandma, they were never really swearer people in the house anyway. But it's not like blasphemy. No, it's fine. I just prefer not to use it in such. And then some will have always a rebuttal or argument to that, and that's fine. That wasn't my point. So as we come back, we got the downgrade, and then now I know things happen. We were promised that the unit would be in, and this is, now I'm talking about the travel trailer, and nope, you can see we're still in the big one, but there's a lot of horrible stresses coming with that, and we were trying to get the small one. So we were told it was okay to go up on the hill. Now, I have never been an opportunist in my life. I have always spent my life helping people. I will not take any kind of I've had too many people take advantage of me. I've had too many leechers. I've had too many people just really push everything so beyond than where it needs to go. Now, I was told it was okay that we could crash there for one night. We did it one night. That was it. But they once again, being accused of things we're not even doing. This has happened to me since as young as I can remember. And some would just go, well, it just dust it off. No one wants to sit back and hear all the complaints of somebody, and it doesn't mean I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to share with you this chaos that's going on. And it doesn't help when you got someone who's got extreme PTSD. I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm not using extreme social anxiety as an excuse, because I suffer from that as well. And I know we all suffer from anxiety, but there's different levels of anxiety that we do. And I always try to do my best. And I don't put chemicals in me to calm it down or to become numb, and I can't do that. And that's fine. I'm not judging others. This is just how my process works. So with that, we were told it was okay. And then a couple days later, suddenly it wasn't okay. And then my stresses and my rashes start breaking out again, because this is what happens when someone really stresses me out. I try to keep myself in a low stress level, but we know life doesn't allow for that, no matter how hard you try. And no matter every other little therapist and doctor and every other one you'll talk to, and they'll give you all these chaotic reasonings. I totally get it on both sides of the coin, but it's very, very debilitating for an individual like myself. And I'm not here to gain attention. I'm not here to do any of that. I'm just trying to help give you a better broad circle of kind of what the situation is, and hope, and God is to pray that we have some kind of understanding there, so that someone can sit back and go, yeah, I feel for you, not tough crap, That's just not what we need to be doing. And so with that said, I knew I was not going to be able to pull this massive RV. Now, someone was very kind, and they let us park the RV for a bit in a location for a few days. So, yay, we had power for a little bit. I had Wi-Fi for a few days, and I was so grateful. I even wrote them a nice little thank you card, so it was very, very good. But I didn't even stay there that long. I think it was like a night or two. They said we could be there for like a week, and I think it was only there for a couple of nights. And then and prior to that, we'd been bouncing around in like the Walmart parking lot and things like that. And then I had gone up there, and then they said it was okay to come back because we're getting ready to do the trade, because they promised the travel trailer, the new small, I'm trying to downgrade to a smaller one, and a unit that will fit my SUV I got. I had traded for a 2018 used 22,000 plus miles. A cute little white, and I've named it RC. And yes, I was excited. I meant to bring it in, and I wanted to show it on camera, and I must have really lucked out, because after chaotically trying to go to the town hall, city hall, to take care of that part, and then to fly over to the DMV and have to do that, I totally lucked out. I thought for sure I was going to have RC, ARCEE, with a 1, 2, or 3, or ... And thankfully for my veterans plate, that didn't run into a lot of stress or argument, which is weird, because the last time I did registration to get my plate, usually you have to check like DD-214. They just saw my military ID, and they're like, yeah, we have your DD-214 on file because of like taxes and stuff, and that's fine. But when I got there, they traded it in, and just because I had my veterans plate, thank goodness, the woman was like, I don't have to see all that. And then I showed her my ID, and she was, nope, not good enough. And I'm like, what? Not good enough? What the? Anyway, I'm not going to get into that part of it. But with all that, those pieces put into place, now I was getting stress and anxiety, because now I'm not allowed to stay up there. And I was, every night I would bounce around somewhere, living in the vehicle, and checking on Miss Mora, refilling her water and things like that. And I was told it was fine and safe to put off to the side. Well, the sides, even were in a parking lot, and now someone next door is having an issue, and one of the workers there that was telling me it was no problem, but now it suddenly is, and he was literally like there doing work, and he was waiting for me, and I pull up, and I just, nothing's worse than not only getting, well, there are things worse, but it's the old cliche of having an angry bang at the door, or someone to be waiting for you, ready to tear you a new butthole. And I was ready to defend myself, and I did within reason, but it was just not needed. So of course now, if I run into this individual every once in a while, I'm not saying that we're going to constantly run into this individual, but now they're going to have issue if they see my face again. And they were all angered ever since they've seen my face, and they've seen it a couple times when I come down to the parking lot when I have to talk to the sales individual, and that hasn't been. And then they've cranked the price up, and then they gave me a rebuttal for raising the price and for the one I was going to get. And then suppose it was supposed to be in last week, and then it supposedly will come in this week, but I had to get my RV out of there, and my worry was, great, now I'm going to spend the $31+ go get a U-Haul truck. It's not going to have the correct ball size on it. I tried to find out what the size was. I tried to take the ball off of my old truck. I never got to do that. I was trying to let that be with whoever gets the new truck needed. Now they may end up changing the ball size, and that would have been nice, at least gotten the ball hitch to take with me to be able to do that. But I was not able. So I end up reserving this U-Haul pickup that was certified to be enough weight to handle it, and it did have it because they are set up for trailer hitches, and they're 2-inch hitches. And I get there and I'm checking in, and I'm using the app to check in, and there must have been some computer glitch issue or something. And I'm checking in, and it tells me to go over and take a picture and go get the keys. And as I'm starting to walk towards the truck, an older gentleman with glasses comes in, takes the visor out, jumps in, and drives off of the truck. And I'm like, okay, wait, was that someone that worked here and they're just gassing up? Because I was about 20 minutes early. So I went inside. Come to find out, I guess the guy reserved it almost the exact same time as I did. I guess there was some discrepancy in the computer system, even though I was checking in already. You'd think that would have blocked that. But then they're like, well, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Same price, but not the same thing. So they end up giving me this 10-footer box truck. And boy, that was a struggle because it didn't have the best tires on it. Thankfully, I bought the collision insurance. Oh my goodness sakes. So now I have to end up leaving Miss Beautiful in the car for a little bit. Don't worry, I cracked the windows, and thankfully we were in the shade in the corner, so she was fine for a couple hours. It turned into a 3-hour stressful fiasco. So I had to drive up there. First off, there's no cameras put on that, so now there's this big box. I got no help, and sadly, the few folks I know were busy or had to work or all these other struggles and issues. Finally get the darn thing hooked up, pull it out, trying to get across. Now, this is way back when I was talking earlier about so much anger and selfishness, and God forbid if anybody slows down to have a nice Saturday or Sunday drive. They just it's a very heavy traffic area over there. Every once in a while back in the day, someone would stop and let you cross over. And you try to wait until there's a break, but 9 times out of 10, usually 99.999% of the time, just as one side goes, even though there's a middle lane, some will shoot out. That's easy for a smaller vehicle, but I had this massive U-Haul truck and a travel trailer, so I'm trying to sneak out. I'm trying to be a little aggressive, and I come out. And they're just driving around me. Nobody stops. Finally, I decide to get a little more aggressive, and I pull out a bit more, hoping, and God forbid, nobody stops to ram into us. A lot of people aren't even paying attention these days. So, thankfully, a truck stopped for us, so I thought, I'm going to give him a nice smile and a wave for letting me through, right? Maybe, wow, someone's finally nice, right? Nope. Because then the other way, I kept going, right? Finally, I have a small break, and I'm pulling out, and all the guy does is give me a rude gesture, learn how to drive, and said some other nasty things, honked at me. I'm thinking, really, God forbid if I took 30 seconds out of your freaking crazy, whatever destination you are going to. Stand back for 5 minutes and think about that instead of going into massive road rage or chaos and whatever crap's going on in your mind. You really got to do this? I mean, seriously, I didn't rebuttal back. I just needed to keep going. And then, of course, most of the way, I'm having to go between 10 to 20 miles an hour, 17 miles an hour, because I'm trying to, God forbid, make sure that I don't know exactly, because I wipe the top and I can't find the ball size. I've looked it up. It won't tell me the ball size. It says TBA or NA, and it won't tell me. I've checked so many sites, I couldn't remember. I couldn't find the manual. Nothing gave it. It said the weights, but it didn't tell me. And then I was like, okay, well, if you have a weight, that will kind of tell you the kind of ball. That's not always the case. And I know this. And I know that my side was out a little bit. And, of course, my keys were back in my car, and I wasn't going to get to do that. And I was already in this stressful level of anxiety and chaos going on, and I was struggling so bad. And so I'm going along, and we're getting the honks, and they're flying by, and I'm trying to do like what I used to do in track. And I used to try to, like, focus. And I would try to tell myself not to allow outside distractions. But it's not so easy anymore to do that. And I just kept reminding myself, okay, gotta try to keep in that speeds. Well, we get over to Hollowell, Maine, and there's a bridge over there, and I tried to go extremely slow. No, thankfully the bridge did not collapse. There's a bump, and the bump went a little too much, even at that low mileage, and it came right off. And I was like, I was so terrified it was going to. And, of course, there's no breakdown lane because you're coming across this little bridge, and there's, like, this little tiny breakdown piece. Like it's really, really small. So I'm trying to pull over, and most of the time it's honking, angry people flying by, nasty gestures, screams, all kinds of crap that I'm trying to just ignore. Look, I can already feel it. My stomach's twisting up right now. You can't see it. I can feel it, though. And thank God, because when you raise the front of your travel trailer, so I'm getting ready now at this point to raise my travel trailer up. And most of the time, when it's on a block or something, it will just raise a little bit. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to turn into a nightmare if I can't get something under there. So it had already dragged a little because I was trying to pull it over a little so I could try to let some of the vehicles go by. And the bottom had gotten scraped a bit, and it like discolored the little disc part. And then the whole thing was now the 4 bolts were a little shaky. I was like, oh God. And it had come forward and bounced. Thank God that truck actually had that. I'm actually glad I didn't have the other type, because this one had this like steel, like it allowed it to take a little impact. And I had that collision on, thank God. Now the little, it was already loose, the plug you put to plug in the lights for the travel trailer. There's that little like black plug flip down, and you flip it down on the back of your vehicle, and you plug this plug in, not the rectangle one, but the big round circle one. And that flap was already kind of loosey-goosey anyway, and I guess from all the friction, it popped off, and it just kind of hung there. So it finally I couldn't believe it. I raised, and I thought it was only going to come up like a little bit. I'm thinking, I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. Thankfully, out of some kind of grace or whatever the system allowed me to finally do, or something broke and allowed me to go further than it normally does, but it went way up high enough to let me finally put it right on the travel trailer. And see, I've been talking for so long, my World of Warcraft game has now logged out on me. Because I knew we had a lot to talk about this weekend. And, okay. No, normally I would be using my keyboard, but I'm going to be glad when I'm settled, because I'll have the keyboard all set up, and I won't be doing this weird, like, pausing while I'm trying to Alt-Tab and get it all logged back. It's been absolutely chaotic. I know this weekend's update is really lagging on already. We're already just about at a half hour. I'm trying to get through I'm trying to give you a full story here of the chaos of what we have to do about slowing down and being less selfish and thinking that everyone's out for themselves, and we can't be doing that. This world is horrible when they don't. I do have a small shining star piece near the end of this story, so bear with me through the chaos. Finally, we get it back on, and I'm now putting at about 10, 15, 17 miles an hour the rest of the way, like freaking out every tiny little discrepancy in the tar along the roads. And I'm trying to stay off sort of the main road area, and I wasn't going to go the interstate, but I wasn't going to go. There's a big hill in Gardner, like you're heading to the second exit. And I was not going to take that, because if any of you have ever seen that animated short with Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy, and they lose their trailer, and it starts going down the mountain, and they're chasing after it, that's all comedy antics. This would have turned into absolute chaos, and it would have been a whole fiasco, and I was not going to take that opportunity, so I turned right instead of up this massive hill. I was terrified I was going to lose the travel trailer, and it was going to go back. And I know I have the metal chains, but I was worried those were going to snap too, and everything was just going to pop and go, and just absolutely, or where they're connected on was going to pop because of these little flippy, like, chain latches that are on there, and I was thought for sure with all that weight the latch might finally. Now I know they're created not to do that, but you don't know, there could be some loose, the way it's been fused on there, torched. I just couldn't find the words, so I end up going the other way, and I'm turning, and I used to call it the fart bridge as we come over there, but the bridge is now changed. It doesn't have that sound when you go across it anymore. The grain, it goes across, makes your wheels sound like brrr, like that. So I when I was younger, I used to call it the fart bridge. It had that sort of sound, and so I ended up turning left, and there's a sign that says no trucks entry, and I'm thinking, oh no. And I know that's normally the much larger Mack trucks. I know my grandfather had a Mack truck, my uncle. They all did that. We got to ride in them, and I have a lot of experience when it comes to that. I'm well aware. I understand weights and all that. I was just worried. I was thinking, oh no, is there a bridge I forgot about that's over here? Is there some large hill? Thankfully, the hills were minor, but there was still some. I was still freaking going up any of them. There was still a good bit of hill going there. And finally, after about 2.5 hours, I get here, and then my back tire in the little gutter system they got, there's a couple rocks there, and it catches. Thankfully, it didn't break it. I thought for sure with all that weight it'd break it. It didn't break it. It just pulled a rock. I have a terrible time. I tried to come around wide, and it didn't work, and then one of the tires on the truck just kept spinning, and I'm trying to move. I don't maneuver these things so well. These are very large. So finally, this guy, one of my neighbors, comes over, and he's trying to help guide me. And I was like, "Thank you. You're a sight for sore eyes. You're the first nice person today I had." And then his wife comes over, and I didn't know if it's a brother, sister, or wife. I can't assume. I mean, there's so many titles now of what individuals are identified as. I didn't want to assume anymore. So I just said, thank you for letting me borrow your person. I just said that. She said, no problem. She's like, I wouldn't have the guts to do that. I said, look, to be honest, I really didn't want to either, but I said, I'm trying to stay strong and get through this. Finally, we got it here. We got it parked. They were starting to ask me, oh, your little extension there is kind of sticking. I said, yeah, it gets stuck. I didn't want to get into all the, I said, I know it happens. I said, I'm sure you can understand that. They're like, yeah. So thankfully, he was really nice. The gentleman was sort of already starting to set I was getting ready to do that. And of course, everything was locked, so I couldn't get out my blockers from my tire. But I had a few blockers I had held onto inside my U-Haul. So I was setting those down real quick. Came around, he'd already kind of set that and undid it. And I said, if you'd like to share the story some more, I said, feel free to come on, over a different day. I said, when the chaos has less ensued, if you'd like. So I'm happy to share with you more of these details. And I said, I got to fly back, sadly. I said to U-Haul and get this back around 4-ish. So I get back. I had to stop and fill it up. It cost about $11 to fill it up, and I got it back there and checked it in. Thank goodness that little bit older woman that was checking those in. She was so nice. And we had just a nice conversation. And you'd think we shouldn't have to do this, but I thanked her and I said, just thank you for being a human being and for being compassionate this afternoon. I said, that really goes a long ways. And she's like, absolutely. And so it just felt good. So there was too small. All I'm saying is that sometimes when you got a chaotic thing that happens, sometimes if you look deep enough, you can find some little small star in there, if you will. So with that said, let's kind of wrap this up. There's so much more going on. I wanted to share that nice little story with you. Thank you for coming along. I appreciate anyone that stuck around this whole time. Somebody be like, get on with it, and they just skip. That's fine. Well, if I got time to edit, I hope now that I'm a little more settled, I can get back and be back with my guild tomorrow. I don't know. I hope that doesn't go. I don't know. I got some more things I got to get done today. I'm trying to get settled in here. I got to clean my refrigerator. I had to do a lot of cleaning last night. Some water came in. I guess the RV was a little slanted. There's a lot of other things going on. We're going to kind of leave it at that, though. Don't worry. I'm not going to get into another story. We're going to wrap it up. I'm going to say, take 2 things to think about this week. Try to offer 2 nice, kind gestures to someone without doing it with attitude. frustration, short-temperedness, or pissiness, or just a negative, mean demeanor, and someone will go, that's just their... Okay, just because that's how they are doesn't mean they can't step back for 5 seconds and try to be a kind human being. And then you think it can go back and be that demeanor if they want, but it would be nice if you can try to take 2 of those. Call me in the morning, and then once again, you know the drill. We will see you later.